Hello and welcome back to Karma Stories. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have a few stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. Before we start today, make sure you're following us on your preferred podcasting platform, and if you're on YouTube, just do me a favor and drop a little like on the video down below. Alright, on to today's stories. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from IcyCrest1442. You want the chocolate soft serve on the right side of the cup? I'll give you the chocolate soft serve on the right side of the cup. I originally posted this in r/traumatize them back, and it was suggested that folks in this subreddit would enjoy my story too. This was from a couple of years ago when I worked at a small cafe. It had a soft serve machine that served vanilla and chocolate with a nozzle in the middle to serve both flavors swirled together. And there was this one customer who always made a big deal about the soft serve he ordered. He would come in for just the soft serve, and there was always something wrong with it. He would ask for toppings, and then complain that it was either too much or too little, and then ask us to serve him a new cup with the right amount. As if this nitpicking wasn't annoying enough, one day he decided he wanted both flavors, so my coworker served him the chocolate vanilla swirl. The guy said it was wrong, that he didn't want the flavors mixed together, so my coworker served him a new cup with chocolate on one side and vanilla on the other. The guy then says it's still wrong, that he wants the chocolate on the right side of the cup. My coworker was a 17-year-old kid who got all flustered, apologized, and then served him a new cup after struggling to figure out which side of the cup was the right side. After that, I made it my mission to make sure and help this guy the next time he came in. I didn't have to wait long because he was back the following week. He had a smug smirk on his face and asked for a vanilla and chocolate soft serve. So I got him a vanilla and chocolate soft serve, with each flavor on a different side. I slid it over the counter to him. He looked at the cup and his smirk disappeared. I asked if anything was wrong, and he said no, but then a second later, the smirk was back, and he said he wanted the chocolate on the right side of the cup. I told him, okay, no problem, sir, and turned the cup 180 degrees. I looked him straight in the eye, gave him my own smirk, and told him, there, the chocolate is on the right side now. Anything else I can get for you today? His smirk disappeared again and didn't come back this time. He said, no, it's fine, thanks. He picks up his cup, I charge him for his soft serve, and he leaves without another word. The minute he's gone, my coworkers burst into laughter, and I told them that if he ever tries pulling that right side stuff again, to do just what I did, that we weren't going to waste any more soft serve on him. That guy didn't come back after that day, at least not during my shift there. Maybe he figured out we weren't going to let him mess with us anymore. I don't know what his deal even was. Maybe he just enjoyed complaining and watching us bend over backwards for him. Whatever it was, I was just glad I was able to traumatize him enough to not come back. Jumping down to the comments on this one, there's one from a user called Captain Costod. It says, I used to work at an ice cream place. I know the guy you're talking about. There's one per place at least. For all current, former, and past soft serve workers, I both salute and thank you. It's funny because the first time I read this story, the first thing I thought when they said that it needed to be on the right-hand side was that you could just turn the cup around and it would be on the right-hand side. It's a circle, so it doesn't matter where you put it. If you turn it, it will be on the right eventually. I take my hat off to everybody working in any kind of fast food. It's a job that I couldn't do because I have a hard time just putting up with people. So, huge respect for all of you working in food service. You are all awesome. This story comes to us from Lorg Skygon. Absentee boss wants me to increase the daily order against my suggestion? You got it. I used to work at an upscale-ish cafe. I was a supervisor and in charge of the bakery section. There was also a kitchen and a coffee bar. Now, Mother's Day was our biggest day of the year by a huge margin. Like, it would be close to triple our daily sales for a regular Sunday. Most mid-grade holidays would also be busy. And after every big holiday sales day, the sales the next day would be around 50 to 60% of normal. So I would order about 2/3 of my regular order for that Monday. Now, our owner was somewhat absentee from our store. She owned 5 locations, 4 of which were in the same city. Ours was the outlier, in a smaller location about 2 hours away. She spent almost all of her time at the 4 locations and maybe visited us once a month. This month, she just happened to come on the day after Mother's Day. I can add that of all the employees, only the assistant manager liked the owner. Even the manager couldn't stand her. She saw that my bakery case was somewhat low and asked why. I explained that the day after the holidays was always slower, and I ordered less because I didn't want to waste money. She told me never to do that again. She in fact told me to double my normal order. Now, I had been in this job for 4 years by this point, and I knew that bakery section inside and out. Also, at this point, only the manager and one of the cooks had been there longer than me. Even the manager told me that things were always better when I was there. I always stayed late to cover call-ins, often came in on my day off if they needed me. I even once drove a catering delivery 90 minutes each way to satisfy a local customer. I told the owner that today was a special circumstance and that doubling the order would lead to a lot of food waste and recommended that we not do it. With my regular daily orders, we usually ran out only near the end of the day, barring unforeseen circumstances, like someone coming in and doing a big pastry order without notice. This was from a lot of trial and error over the years, and I changed my order up whenever things looked like they were changing. But she insisted, even after the manager also told her that our regular order was fine. I tried again to tell, and she just told me to do it. My manager also said it by that point. So I did it. I doubled my regular order. After about 2 weeks, she emailed me and asked why we were throwing out so many pastries every day. I told her that she told me to double my order. At that point, my boss says she wanted to fire me. My boss convinced her that she needed me to help her run the store, which she probably did. So I wasn't fired, but I lost my position as bakery lead. I was still a supervisor who mostly worked the bakery section, but I no longer ordered product. Still the same wage, but I was switched from mostly mornings to mostly nights. While I did miss my morning regulars, I also enjoyed making the same money for less responsibility. About 6 months later, the manager quit to go back to school, and the place went downhill fast. As I said, everyone working there hated the owner except the assistant manager, who had quit about a month before this for a new job. As soon as this happened, I started looking for a new job, even though I hated changing jobs. So did a number of others. Everyone was loyal to the manager, nobody to the owner. I took a supervisor job at a nearby restaurant and never looked back. I'm told by some coworkers who are still there that it became difficult to get through the day without me and the manager there, and we lost lots of sales over a year before they started picking up again. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called CrazyButterfly6762. It says, "So because you followed her rules and tried to tell her what you know, you almost got fired? She's not a good owner or manager." Another user down below called Steve Amps said, "You must be new around here. Incompetent owners and managers, etc. are the bread and butter of this subreddit." One more commenter down below called Formless Wendigo said, "The owner told you to do something, then wanted to fire you due to doing that. Sounds like they wanted to get rid of you from the start." OP responded and said, "I can tell you that she wasn't a fan of me, but I'm a very dedicated employee, and she didn't see me that often." I feel like this story just drives home the fact that when we're given an order that we don't agree with, we should turn around and say, "Hey, could you put that in writing or possibly send it to me in an email because I want record of this for a later date." If that doesn't make the manager or owner look back on what they just told you, then it's their own fault when it comes back later to bite them in the butt. This story comes to us from Insider Recess. Stop reporting about office burnout? Okay, done. My field of work has a high turnover and high burnout rate. As a result, my company promotes transparent conversations with staff members to ensure we're all implementing self-care, taking PTO as needed, and asking for managerial support when overwhelmed with tasks. Last year, my work began to suffer. I was struggling losing 2 close family members suddenly, and was transparent in hopes they would understand why I was withdrawn and had lower productivity. My manager wrote me up as a result of my burnout, citing that I was using our one-on-ones inappropriately, causing stress among the team with my grief, and talking about being burnt out too much. The write-up included every single one-on-one documentation of when I asked for help with burnout. Management instructed me to stop talking about burnout. No problem. I stopped bringing up burnout, being transparent, and asking for support. About 2 months later, I requested a 7-week leave of absence, citing extreme burnout and mental health issues. Management was shocked and angry that I did not tell them I was struggling or burning out. I handed them a copy of my write-up and said, the action plan I received stated I could not talk about burnout anymore. Management was scolded for inadvertently creating a hostile work environment where staff couldn't ask for support. I got 7 weeks off and partial pay, and they had to cover my job for that entire time I was out. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Trenton. It says, sweet. I hope that slammed their fragile egos back down where they belonged. Also, hope you're doing okay now. OP responded and said, I still work there, and I've been under a microscope since I have not been as transparent as before. Apparently that makes them more uncomfortable than what I was doing before. Another commenter down below called Elmister said, the first time you said anything about burnout or losing family members, you should have been given information on reaching out to your company's EAP. As a manager, I don't want details, but I do have to have enough compassion and empathy to realize you are struggling and need someone to talk to. OP responded and said, instead of compassion and understanding, I was met with punishment and got my hand slapped. They cured my burnout permanently though. Can't get burned out if you don't care. Sadly, I don't think OP realizes that apathy is still a type of burnout because they're going to a job where they just don't care anymore, and that takes a toll on your mental health as well. OP mentioned in another comment that they now shifted their focus to their family and that work is just a paycheck. Well, you spend a lot of time at that workplace. In fact, you likely spend the majority of your waking hours at that workplace, even more than you spend with your family themselves. So being in that kind of state of mind where you're just full of apathy and the place doesn't matter anymore really isn't good. OP, I'd highly recommend talking to somebody or possibly even changing jobs. This story comes to us from Bright Media 1429. HOA president wanted heat. I manage a New York City condo with central AC that, once switched into winter mode, can't go back to cooling until spring. New York City law requires heat starting October 1st, but October swings from chilly to unseasonably warm, so we usually wait for a really cold stretch before turning it on. Tenants were fine with this for years. One chilly day was better than being unbearably hot for 10. Last year, the board president lost it over a slightly chilly day towards the middle of October. She sent an email demanding we turn on the heating system immediately, and that going forward, the heat must always be on by October 1st. She didn't care if other units would be uncomfortably warm, and that she's the board president, and she should be comfortable in her unit. This year, we followed her orders. On October 1st, heat on. At the annual meeting, tenants were furious. They wanted to know why a system that had worked for years was suddenly broken. The president started chewing me out for getting her email the previous year. Not wanting to deal with her nonsense, I got the green light from my boss to pull up her own email on the projector. Her exact words, her exact demands. She went pale and, for the first time ever, had nothing to say. She lost her position in the election. Her replacement was very happy we called her out, and we renewed our contract for 5 more years. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Booter Tutor Bravo. It says, the first commandment of business is cover thy butt. OP responded and said, and if you're going to be a horrible person, don't put it in writing. Well, I don't know how old this building is that OP is living in, but oh my gosh, what kind of system doesn't allow you to switch from hot to cold whenever you need to in your own unit? That just sounds incredibly dumb. An interesting thing to think about on this one too is that if somebody lives on the bottom floor of an apartment building compared to somebody who lives on the top floor of the apartment building, neither of them are going to know what the temperatures are on the opposite ends of the building. It's generally pretty hot the higher up you go, and it's generally pretty cold the lower down you go. So a building that only has one thermostat, one regulation for the temperature for the whole building, again, like I said, is incredibly dumb. This story comes to us from Wander Willows. Use only the official uniform. I worked part-time at a fast food place in Texas. We had a manager who was weirdly obsessed with rules. Once, she announced that we were only allowed to wear official work uniform items, nothing extra. My problem is that the restaurant's AC was always broken, and I usually wore a plain black baseball cap to keep sweat out of my eyes. She told me to take it off because it wasn't official uniform. I reminded her that the sun hits directly through the front windows and I'd be dripping sweat over the fryer. She didn't care. Official uniform only, she repeated. So I took off the hat. Within an hour, sweat was literally running down my face and into my eyes. I had to keep stopping to wipe my forehead, slowing everything down. Orders backed up, customers got irritated, and she finally asked, "Why are you moving so slow?" I replied and said, "Official uniform only." By the next shift, she magically approved hats for everyone. Jumping into the comments for this one, there's one from a user called AppleBlossom1962. It says, "Sorry manager, have to throw out all of this oil because my sweat dripped into it and we certainly can't make french fries in this oil, it's contaminated." Do you honestly think that's gonna stop the manager? They're gonna be like, "Nah, it's okay, the water will boil off and the heat in there, it's gonna kill any germs." I mean, if that's true, that the water gets boiled off and the heat will kill the germs, I guess it's just the salt from your sweat that would stay there in the oil, so you get extra seasoning on those fries, right? This story comes to us from Kansas Hayseed. You demand to carpool in my car? Buckle up, cupcake. Was working for a business as a principal firmware engineer. Commute was an hour each way on the best days. Leased an EV, which would barely get me there and home, but was carpool lane qualified. New coworker lived nearby and proposed that we carpool so we could use the carpool lane and save him maybe 20 minutes. Wasn't about to ride with him in his car due to his poor vision and subsequent lack of situational awareness. He asked if he could ride with me in my EV. Declined as I didn't need him to use the carpool lane, and his added extra bulk might exceed the limited range of that early EV. He complained to our manager, who demanded that I accommodate him. Be a team player for once, don't you know? Decided to offer carpooling with him in my pumped up Restomod 71 Datsun 240Z on a Friday morning. Turns out that he didn't like the volume of my music or the velocity of my car. He ended up taking an Uber home that evening and never bugged me about carpooling again. Yay, team! Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called HTired5678. It says, "I don't see how a manager could demand that you include a coworker in your commute. Good for figuring out how to make the coworker not want to ride." I think in this case you need to respond directly to the boss and say, "Hey boss, if you want me to drive my coworkers in, then that's going to be on paid time. But I'm also not going to do that in my car unless you're paying a really good rate for mileage. Or if you give me a company car to drive while I'm on the clock." There's a couple of concessions here that need to be made if you want me to bring somebody else into work. This story comes to us from Sailing Spark. Won't give me the card to get fuel? Enjoy the towing bill. I was just reminded of something that happened to me back in the early 90s. I was managing a warehouse for a furniture company. We were busy enough to keep a small 12-foot box truck and a pickup running around delivering all day. Part of my job was also deliveries. So even though I was warehouse manager, I did not have access to the fuel credit card. It was kept locked up in the boss's desk. This particular day, the truck was down to about 1/8 of a tank, something you should never do with a diesel. So I asked for the card to fill it up to make a delivery. The boss would ordinarily not have a problem with this, but he was out that day, and I had to deal with the head salesman who decided that 1/8 of a tank was perfectly adequate to make this delivery. I could fill it up when I get back. So make the delivery, and on the way back, the truck starts running out of fuel. It would die and I would restart, and we could make it a mile and it would die again. I get it into the station and it dies as we coast in. Call the salesman, he huffs and puffs, and finally sends somebody out with the card about an hour later. We fill it up and she won't start. We ran her so low we pulled air and the whole system needs to be bled. So truck gets towed to the repair place and bled. They put in a new filter just to be sure. It's out of commission for 2 days, so we have to rent a truck. So all told, we missed all the deliveries for the rest of that day, had to pay to have the truck towed and repaired, and had to rent a truck. All because the head salesman had to be a dick and not want to give me the card. He got a serious chewing out over that, and never again did he give anybody trouble about handing over the card. I wish I could say that everything was roses after that, but he was always a dick and would find new ways to be a dick to us, but never with the fuel card after that. Jumping into the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Dayalis. It says, company car, company credit card, used exclusively for company deliveries. And the guy has a problem about people filling the tank. Not even the bean counters should have an issue with that car being constantly topped off. Filling up a tank is a 5-minute ordeal, and all that headache would be skipped. There's literally zero downsides to filling the tank as soon as the needle even twitches downwards from full. Even if every single driver fills the tank every single day, it'll still likely be cheaper in lost labor than a single rental van cost. I feel like this one was just a salesperson who thinks that their crap doesn't stink because they're the ones that bring in the money for the company. We've heard this so many times in stories in Malicious Compliance. The next time the boss picks somebody to take over for them when they're not available, they should pick somebody who actually has management skills. Somebody who understands that people have been doing their job for a very long time, and they probably know how to do it better than you do. So if they're asking you for something, there's good reason for it. Alright, I think we'll end this one here. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow us on your preferred podcasting platform. Or if you're on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really does help us out. I thank you all for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.